My father worked for the U.S. Army as a physicist for 45 years for an army base called Fort Monmouth. My father did top secret work for the Army. He never discussed his job with even with my mother or me or my two younger brothers. He just didn't talk about his work. Okay, so one day, March 1970, I'm 13. My father picked me up and drove me home from school about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a sunny day. And as we're driving through my suburban New Jersey neighborhood, this huge silver V Craft, this huge silver V Craft, here's my father's car, and it just started following our car. It's just hovering, I don't know, and I'll say 400 feet above the car. It wasn't very high. And it just was hovering above the car. Silent, right? No smoke, no lights, no propellers, no noise. Just hovering, following my father's car.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to First Contact. Today's very special guest is Dan Harary. Now, Dan is an absolute superstar. He's come right from Hollywood into your computer screen or your phone, wherever you're watching it, and he is the co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Now, Dan, you and I met at Contact in the Desert last year, and I have to say, I love your mission. I love your vision. I love the idea of using media to promote disclosure. So I'm just really excited that you can now come on this podcast and share a little bit about your journey, your story, and also your projects with us here today.
That's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I met you. You and I met in the food line. We
Oh,
met
we
at
did
the
too. Yeah,
we
that's
met in the food
right.
line at the
Yeah.
banquet dinner. It was Contact 2024. And just the minute I met you, I felt like you were someone I was supposed to meet. I've had that really, I think, my whole life, and maybe you have too. There are
Mm.
certain people that I've met, and it's almost an instant. I'm supposed to know this person and have this person be a friend in my life. So yeah, that's how I felt about you. And
Can I just add to that? Because I
yeah, sure.
I felt the same way because, I actually arrived late to the banquet, which is not something
Right.
I normally do. I'm a Virgo. I like to be on time, right?
Right.
And I
Yep.
was just procrastinating in my hotel room doing nothing. And then suddenly I get this feeling that this is the time to go down. And then that's how I ended up in that spot right behind you or in front of
Right.
you in that line, which is like the timing was just, yeah. Anyway, the synchronicity was beautiful.
I agree with you. I really do. And yeah, it was very nice to meet you. As you know, I'm the head of public relations for Contact in the Desert. So I did the year I met you last year. That was the first time I was the head of PR. I did it again a month ago, and we were just talking offline about how interesting this year was. And
Mm.
I was looking for you. I was like, I wonder if Isha's going to show
Mm.
up. But like you said, Ross Coulthart was there, and I got a chance to meet him for a little while and hang with him for a brief time. Very sweet guy, very nice guy. He made a joke, Isha, that will resound with you. He said, he spoke at the dinner banquet. He said, I always love coming to the U.S. to these kinds of conferences because here I'm treated like a hero. He goes, in Australia, where I'm from, people look at me because I'm in the media like something they stepped in and need to scrape off from the bottom of their shoe. And that's that's what he said. And the
Oh my.
way he said it was so sincere. It got a big laugh, but he really meant it. So he was a joy. I got to meet Chris Bledsoe for the first time. Very, very cool guy. And I introduced my friend Richard Dolan for one of his lectures, and I did a presentation with Steve Bassett. So I had, in addition to the PR and there's a lot of podcasters. CNN was there for 3 days. I also had a chance to do a little bit of public speaking. But for any of your followers who have never been, you should check out before you die. Before you die, you got to go to Contact in the Desert at least once. It's really quite a remarkable event, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, I really wish I could have been there again this year. As you know, I had my personal life happening this year. So
Oh, that happens.
hope to,
Sometimes your
yeah,
personal life gets in the way
it
of,
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you've got to make choices, right? But next year, I hope to come back again as well. I think it's going to be an amazing experience. So, Dan, now I do want to go back to last year when we did meet at Contact in the Desert. You shared this incredible story about how you got into this work and the connection with your father. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that background because I think it's important for people to know how you actually ended up in this field in the first place.
That's a perfect question, and I appreciate it. Before I do that, I remember John Lennon had a famous quote. John Lennon's quote was, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans."
Yeah,
So that's what happened to you.
absolutely.
That's what happened to you this year. John Lennon's quote. Okay. My story begins in March 1970. I was 13 years old. I grew up in suburban New Jersey, which is about an hour south of New York City, along the shore, along the Atlantic Ocean. My father worked for the U.S. Army as a physicist for 45 years for an army base called Fort Monmouth, and we'll get more to that in a minute. My father did top secret work for the Army. He never discussed his job with even with my mother or me or my two younger brothers. He just didn't talk about his work. That's the preface to the story. Okay, so one day, March 1970, I'm 13. My father picked me up and drove me home from school about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a sunny day. And as we're driving through my suburban New Jersey neighborhood, Eesha, I'll try to do it this way, this huge silver V craft, this huge silver V craft. Here's my father's car, and it just started following our car. It's just hovering, I don't know, and I'll say 400 feet above the car. It wasn't very high. And it just was hovering above the car. Silent, right? No smoke, no lights, no propellers, no noise. Just hovering, following my father's car. So I go, Dad, I saw it through the windshield. I go, Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Stop the car. Stop the car. My father stopped the car. He and I got out. We stood in front of the car, and there's this giant V. It's like like seeing a pyramid from Egypt, like hanging above my father's car. It's so incongruous. And I'm jumping up and down. I'm 13. Dad, look, it's a Star Trek. Dad, it's Star Trek. Oh my God, isn't this cool? Dad, isn't this so cool? Look at this, Dad. And my father, looked at it like bored to tears, couldn't care less, no interest of any kind. He couldn't care less. He's looking at his watch, he's looking at his shoes, look at his car. You know, I should get the car washed. And it was so incongruous because if you or I mean, we'd be dancing and hugging, making love in the street. You know, my father's literally bored to tears. Okay. So after maybe 3 minutes of just looking, he looks at me very calmly and goes, "Come on, kid, let's go home." Fine. Okay. We get in the car. Now, I just remembered this more recently. When we got in the car, the V followed us maybe for another block or so. And then I saw it go off into the distance slowly, but it left us. Okay. That's the entirety of the sighting. I ran into my house. This is 1970. People may never have heard of a rotary phone. We had a rotary phone. You have to put your finger in the phone. And I called the local newspaper and I said, "Hi, my name is Danny. I'm 13. I just saw a UFO with my father." And the lady said, "Sonny, I can't talk to you right now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls about this. I have to go. I'm very sorry. I have to go." And she hung up on me. Okay. Now, you would think in a normal family, my father and I would have discussed it at dinner that night with my mother and my two brothers. Zero, 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 zero. My father and I never, ever discussed that story setting ever again, and I never told anyone. It was from A to Z. It was like a 45-minute experience, and then that was it. So Isha, and you know the story, but I forgot that happened for 47 years. 47 years. It just wasn't in my head. As you can see behind me, I have a drum set. I'm a drummer. When I was 13, I had just gotten a set of drums. I was in rock bands. I was going to all the rock concerts. In fact, I feel bad about Ozzy because one of the first concerts I ever saw in my life was Black Sabbath with Ozzy in 1971. And I was chasing after little girls and stuff. So I was not into aliens or UFOs when I was 13. It just wasn't there. It was a sighting, a remarkable event, A to Z, couple of 45 minutes, not even. And then that was it. 47 years completely forgotten. Okay. Now, what happened 47 years later? My father died in 2017, so that's 47 years later. He died in Florida with his second wife. He had a bad death. I got the call. I'm here in Los Angeles from his wife. She called me, told me he was gone. About 3 days, I was very, very sad because we were close. About 3 days after my father died, I went to a local deli restaurant near UCLA College here in LA to get a pastrami sandwich and to think about my father and to be sad. That's what I that's what was my goal that that day. And you know this because I've done this. I've told this story all over the world. I sat down, I ordered my food, the waiter walked away. Now this is a true story, and every time I tell it, it's quite remarkable, but I swear on my daughter's life, this is a true story. I sat there thinking about my father, thinking how much I'm going to miss him. A beam of light came through the from above, and hit me in the head really hard. It felt like someone's hand had knuckles, and it was like bang, hard on my head. And then through my eyes, projected in the air, I'll say 8 to 10 inches in front of me, perfect square rectangle, high definition, 3D color, home movie holograph with audio from the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. It played in the air at a deli 3 days after my father died. So I'm watching this and I'm like, my heart's beating fast. My hands start shaking. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. I remember that. There's the car. Now it's not a memory. People have said you remember it. No, I'm in the movie. I was in it, you know. It was the car, me and my dad, and the V. It was perfectly framed. My joke is that God was like a cameraman and had filmed this. And now I think it's part of the Akashic record, which I don't know how else to explain it, but it had been recorded. So I'm watching this and I see the whole thing and I see myself and I go, Dad, it's Star Trek, it's Star Trek. And my dad, this time he should look down at me and he winked at me. And then he said, come on, kid, let's go home. And then this little movie, I would say it played for maybe 20, 25 seconds. And then it just like pixelated like this into dust and it just vanished. Okay. That was it. So I'm shaking. My heart is racing. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? Then part two is I'm clairaudient. I'd say maybe 10 times in my life, I've gotten the message. It's always in my right ear. It's a male voice. So right after that happened, I heard a male voice in my right ear say to me, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, get a pen, get a pen, you need a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen. He gave it, put it in my hand. My hand did automatic writing, which I've never done before or since. There was a paper placemat on the table at the deli. My hand wrote three things: write a book about benevolent aliens, lead character's father knew about UFOs, capital A, capital T, capital C. My hand stopped. I dropped the pen, and that was it. So now I'm holding this paper. I'm shaking, and I'm thinking, I just came here for a sandwich. I'm starving, right? And what is happening? I'm shaking. I'm looking. I'm like, write a book about benevolent alien. I go, well, I guess I have to write a book. That's not why I went to get my sandwich. Write a book. Okay, I have to write a book. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. My father had just died 3 days before. So now I'm looking, I'm like, lead character. Well, I guess I'm the lead character because I guess my father knew about UFOs. And then ATC, I'm looking. And then after maybe 3 minutes, I came up with the title for my book, ATC, After They Came. So this was given to me. This book was given to me as a gift. As a gift. It was a digital download. Now, I think Steve Bassett, my friend, thinks it was an ET download. I think my father gave it to me from heaven.
Yeah.
I truly do. I believe my father gave it to me from heaven. Okay. So after I ate my sandwich, I went home and then I worked on the book. I wrote the book. It took me a year. And then it took another 5 years till I got it published. The book is a sci-fi novel. inspired by true events. It's about two benevolent Pleiadian aliens, male and female, 7 feet tall, blue eyes, the long blonde hair, beautiful, tall. They come to Earth in the near future to save mankind. They solve all of mankind's problems, working through the lead character. Now, I based the lead character on me, and I made him be this incredibly depressed, suicidal person. On page one of the book, the lead character, his name is Jonathan. He's It's his 70th birthday. He's suicidal and he's drowning himself in the Pacific Ocean because he hates his life and everything went wrong in his life. He just hates his life. He's drowning on his 70th birthday in the Pacific Ocean. On page one, as he's drowning, a huge UFO comes out of the Pacific, beams him on board, then slowly travels over all of Los Angeles, gets to Dodger Stadium, and then these beautiful Pleiadians and this guy who's naked and who's drowning, the three of them just slowly come down onto the infield. Now, by that point, all the media and the police and the ambulances, military, all these trucks and sirens and microphones and cameras, all that's there. And these two aliens say, people of the world, don't be afraid. Um, we love you. We love mankind. We are friends of humanity. We've been visiting your planet for hundreds of thousands of years. We've come to solve all of your problems, but we will only work through this man, not this guy that had just been drowning. We have a relationship with this guy. And so bring your problems to him, and we will work through him and him alone to solve all of your problems. Okay? And then the aliens get on the ship vanishes, and now this poor bastard who was trying to commit suicide, and all the cameras and the police and the military with guns, and he looks up, he goes, I don't know. Who are you? I don't know. He has no idea what's happening. No clue. That's the whole point of the book. Throughout the course of the book, this guy discovers who he is and who his father was. And because of who his father was, the tip sheet is that because of who his father was, the aliens had a relationship with him, and the aliens cure all of mankind's problems. I call it The Day the Earth Stood Still meets It's a Wonderful Life. My friend Nick Pope, who I'm very blessed, gave me the little blurb on the cover here. This is from Nick Pope, A Delightful Tale of Wonder and Hope. I put it on the cover. I love that. So that's where the book came from. Now we get to who was my father. So that's the key to the whole story.
Can I pause right there? I just have
Yes,
one question. I have one question. So,
absolutely.
um, you know, you've mentioned something that I feel is quite significant here. You've had your memory of what happened on that day where your father was just looking at his watch and his shit, whatever, like, you know.
Right.
But in the hologram, you're seeing it different to how you remembered it. You're seeing him winking at you. Did that
Correct.
actually happen, or was it like an altered memory? I mean, that I find that quite fascinating.
That is an excellent, excellent question. Because I didn't remember the event at all until I saw the movie, maybe he winked at me originally,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Or Isha, even better. How about this? Even better. What if from heaven? What if my dad threw that in because it was a signal? That wink, that little gesture was a signal to me, and then I'll get to what the signal meant. So either well, there's only two choices really. Either it happened originally and I just, because I forgot the whole thing, or my dad threw it in like a little flourish from when he said it from heaven at the deli. Either way, it was a tiny little gesture that explains everything, everything. So I'm not sure to answer your question.
I ask because I do know that in some instances of contact that memories can retrospectively shift. And I had that experience myself. In fact, in 2015, when I first went to Mount Shasta, I, through a series of synchronicities, ended up at this Spanish UFO conference, as you do, right? It just that happened. I just sort of ended up there. And yeah, at the time, I was so early on in my journey that on that particular night, I didn't have any experiences myself, nothing to the extent of what other people had. But that was the day, you probably know this, Dan, quite well. It's the day that Paula Harris and Ricardo Gonzalez claim to have met Antaral, the being who came down, and there's a whole book written about it. It's a whole thing. I was there on that very historical moment, but I saw
Wow.
nothing. But like 1 or 2 years later, I had a memory where I saw the starships that I did not see when I was physically there, but when I looked at the memory of it and I kind of looked down on the memory of it, I could see them there. But my perception at the time couldn't pick them up because vibrationally I wasn't attuned to it. So I found that really interesting. Yeah,
That's like a catch. That's a catch
great.
22.
Yeah,
So all of that was really there when you were there, but you were unable to perceive it at the time because your mind had not yet gone like this, right?
exactly. Yeah, well that's the only way
But
I can explain
but
it. That's why I'm
in
wondering.
retrospect, it was all really there at the time, but
Yes.
you just didn't get that data.
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes I wonder, I've also heard from other people that you can have two people see the craft and 2 seconds later one person will forget that it even happened. Who knows?
Wow, that's a good story. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a
Anyway,
good.
so continue. So I had to ask that.
Okay, sure.
Continue.
No, of course.
That.
It's a very good question. I when I saw the wink, I had a chill up my spine. I'm like, my dad's telling me something. Okay. So I ate my sandwich. I went home. I wrote this book 2017 to 2018. It took me every single day for a year to write. As I'm writing the book, I'm thinking, because one of the lines that my hand wrote, and it wasn't me. Have you ever done automatic writing, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it just incredible? Because
Yeah.
it's not you. It's like you're watching something, right?
Yeah.
So one of my lines said, lead character's father knew about UFOs. Well, there was only one father I knew who could have known. It had to be my own. Okay. So I go home. I'm writing the book for a year. While during that year, a number of things I researched and came to understand. First, I called my mother. Now, my mother is going to be 91 in October. She's still alive. She's in a wheelchair, but mentally, she's totally fine. I called my mother right after I came home from the deli sandwich event. I said, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs at all? And she told me a story I'd never heard before in my whole life. She said, in the early 1960s, now my father worked at a top secret army base in New Jersey called Fort Monmouth. Now we knew my father worked on radar systems and guided missiles. My father was a genius. He was a physicist. He invented different radar systems and guided missiles. That's all we ever knew about my father. And he never went into details. So my mother said in the early 60s, they took my father deep into the vault at the army base one day, showed him something above top secret. She said he came home that night, Eesha. My father was pale and shaking and very upset, she said. My mother goes, honey, what's wrong? My father said, I saw something today in the vault at the base. It's above top secret. I can never tell you or anyone about it as long as I live. My father walked down the hall, and my mother said, your father was never the same after that day. Now, that's a profound story I had never heard. What could my father have seen? Well, it seems to me it was an extraterrestrial craft or a piece of extraterrestrial technology or an extraterrestrial entity of living or dead. What else would have upset my father that much? That was top secret at a major U.S. Army base. So that's what I believe. I think it was a piece of ET technology. My father worked in the radar branch of Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Okay. And that's where they invented many things. And I'm going to get to that in 1 second. So my mother had never told me that story. So that's a great story. Okay. So now we have the sighting with my father. He was bored to tears. My father winks at me after he dies. My automatic writing said character's father knew about yours. And my mother said he saw something above top secret in the early 60s, probably about 62. Okay, those are some pretty good clues. Okay. After that, I have a lot more good clues. Let me see. I actually have a little presentation over here on this.
Great. I love it.
Okay. All right. After my father died, Eesha, I found this orange newsletter in one of my scrapbooks. This is a profile of my father from 1985 from his workplace. In this document, it says that my father invented laser guided drones. And in fact, my father oversaw the first ever laser drone that destroyed a tank at White Sands Missile Testing Range in October 1975. It's here in writing. My father invented high-tech drones. Okay, my mother didn't know that. Nobody knew that. That's pretty cool. Okay, okay, that's that. Other tidbits. When I was little, my father went to the Pentagon and gave talks all the time. When I was little, my father once told me he had written a report that President Kennedy had read. Well, that's pretty cool. In the early 60s, I remember he told me I must have been about 8 or 7, 8. He said that was involved with sending beeping beacon signals to the moon in the early 60s. Okay. So my father was involved with high tech army inventions, electronics, and technology, years before the rest of the world. Okay. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Okay, now, as I was reading my book, writing my book, I read Richard Dolan's book, UFOs and the National Security State, a very famous book. In the back of this book, Eesha, is a glossary of U.S. military UFO sightings above U.S. military bases, hundreds of them. In this little paper that I have sticking out here. There was a major sighting above Fort Monmouth in 1951 which inspired Project Grudge to then become renamed Project Blue Book, and another major sighting above the base in 1952. My father started there in summer of 51. My father was there for both of those UFO events. Now, even if he wasn't outside looking at the sky and saw them, he worked in the radar branch and they were detected on radar. He had to have known about them. He had to. He had to. There's just no way that he would not have at least heard about those things happening. Okay, that's that. The next chunk is I read this book. This is called Fort Monmouth, the U.S. Army's House of Magic, where my father worked for 45 years. They invented, now this is before my father was even born, they invented radar itself. They invented radar here. They invented FM radio, walkie-talkies, night vision, drones, weather satellites, TV satellites, air-to-ground radio communications, and hundreds of other things they invented here. So where my father worked, they invented the state-of-the-art technology for the Army. And like, for example, FM radios. And once they were used during World War II, then it caught on and it was, used all over the world. So my father worked at a cutting-edge technology Fort Army Base. That's this one. I have two more. The next thing that happened was I saw Stephen Greer did a press conference a few years ago. And in his from the Washington Press Club, it was 3 hours long. I watched it on my big TV. And in his presentation, Eesha, he had a slide of 150 U.S. military bases that Stephen Greer had proof of through his whistleblower network that reverse engineered ET technology, 150. So it's this big chart that he had on the TV. I freeze framed the TV. I got off the couch with my finger. I went like this. Number 51 on Stephen Greer's chart was Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Well, I called my mother that day. I said, Mom, I found the smoking gun. Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. They worked on. They didn't work on UFOs. You're insane. It's enough already with the aliens. That's my mother. It's enough already with the. She thinks I'm bat-ass crazy. But there it was, right? And the last thing, and this just happened a month ago. I read this book. This is about a U.S. Senator named Joe McCarthy. He was famous in the 50s. He had hearings in which he looked into the U.S. Army being infiltrated with communists, which it was in the 40s. But in this book, Eesha, it says that Fort Monmouth radar branch where my father worked was involved with Project Blue Book. And to me, that's the smoking gun. That's the smoking gun. Nobody knew that until I read this book. So we put all these clues together in the big picture. My father knew about extraterrestrial craft. He was involved. In my heart, I know he had something to do with reverse engineering. He had to have looked, I think maybe anti-gravity, right? For my father to see that silver V that we saw, this eighth wonder of the world above his car, and not be afraid or enthralled or terrified, but bored, it doesn't make sense unless my father knew what that was. My father knew what that craft was. Now, today, Eesha, I'm not sure if that was a military man-made drone or if it was an ET craft with ETs inside, because I've had supernatural experiences since then. But
Wow.
whatever it was, I know. Now, I think because when I went to get the sandwich, it was 3 days after he died. I think my father was telling me the following. Danny, remember that UFO we saw 47 years ago? I knew what that was. I was involved with it. I couldn't tell you at the time, but I'm dead now. I'm on the other side. I don't have to honor my government NDAs any longer. I knew what it was, and I'm sharing it with you now, and I wanted you to know. So I got that message from my father and a book. Now the book, and we can jump ahead when you want to, but the book led to, where is it? My Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and my podcast and me working with Contact in the Desert and the Wow Signal newsletter that I do. The book changed everything. So it was a series of dominoes, starting with the download to the book, and then everything in my life changed dramatically. And I feel that I was invited into ufology with the download that I got that day from my father, and then the book, and then meeting Steve Bassett. I was invited in because just in 2 years, it's only been over just a little over 2 years. I know everyone. I've done everything, and I've become welcomed into your. I mean, you've been doing this forever. I've been doing this for 2 years, so I got welcomed into the community. It's very cool.
That is fantastic. I mean, gosh,
It's inexplicable,
it
really.
is, it is. And I mean, one of the things that I take away from that is that people are placed where they're meant to be to play the role that they're meant to play. I mean, 2 years is a very fast acceleration to get from maybe not knowing anything to suddenly,
Well,
now.
let me. Okay, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I joined MUFON in 2007
Mm,
and started going to MUFON meetings and reading a million books and watching a million documentaries and going to UFO conferences starting in 2007. Okay. So it's almost 20 years. But
okay.
Isha, keep in mind, I didn't remember my own sighting. It
Yeah.
was just like, hey, UFOs, that's cool. I just went in the back of my brain. I guess it was like you had a sighting, you idiot. But I didn't remember it. So I just instinctively knew. So it's been almost 20 years, almost, that I've been interested. But once I got the download, and that was 2017. And then I met Steve Bassett, 2023. That was like hyper jump to hyper jump to hyper jump.
Yeah, yeah. And it is interesting that for so many years you didn't remember it, and I think that happens a lot more than we think. I mean, look, I had an experience probably when I was 7 years old where I remember having a dream where me and all of my family we get beamed up onto this
Uh,
spaceship. And I remember, and then a few years later when I was in year 5, like so around like 9, 10 years old, we had a story writing competition and I wrote this story about this thing and I won an award for it because the
uh,
teacher thought it was like so clever and got me to read it
that's
out in
great.
front of our little class assembly and like it was a whole thing. And I just thought, well, that was too easy. I just dreamt it up and like there it is. Like 20 years later, I had the thought where I was like, hang on, maybe that actually happened. Like maybe that dream was an actual contact experience. Because how else could a 7-year-old make that stuff up? It's not like I've been watching alien movies or something. And I don't know where I would even get that in my consciousness from.
Why do you think people like both of us, well, your dream may well have really happened. It may have really happened. But like, why did I forget? a major event with my father, like because I loved my father, I adored my father. Why would I have hey, Isha? Why? I mean, I played I was in drums, I was in bands, I was doing rock concerts. But wouldn't I have told my friends or my mother, hey, we saw a UFO? I never told a soul ever.
Well, I think that's part of the mystery of the universe, right? We sometimes don't understand why things happen in the specific timing and the pathway that they do. And I know so many people like yourself who have had experiences, they've forgotten about it, and then years down the track, when the timing is right, when that moment of opening and awakening needs to happen, that's when it comes out. That's when it comes back to the forefront. So it's almost like you have this experience, it gets tucked away in the back, like like a book in a
Buried,
library, and then suddenly
buried,
it's
yeah.
like, yeah, time to pull it out again. But it's always perfect. It's always so divinely timed, and that's the beauty of this universe, right? I feel like there is this structure, there's a method to the madness, right, in all of this that's unfolding. And so what you're doing, I feel, is you're playing your role in that, right? You're playing your role in the exact timing. You got accelerated exactly when you needed to, you got positioned exactly where you needed to. The book came at the timing. I think if it had happened a year earlier or later, it wouldn't have had the same impact. So there's a perfection in this that I think we can appreciate, right?
That's everything you said is really terrific. I think when my dad died, it triggered my divinely inspired entry into ufology because
Mm,
my father's death. I think the reason I'm so into what disclosure movement, Isha, is to honor my father. And I've only just realized that just very, very recently, because
mm.
my father was not allowed to talk about his work. He signed all kinds of NDAs. He was never going to be a whistleblower. There was no chance my father was going to, it's not going to happen. But after he passed, he gave me a baton at that deli. He gave me information that I never knew. And he's like, I was involved with something remarkable. I'm dead now. I'm giving you, I'm giving you like a relay race, Danny. Go. And I did. And I did. I mean, I didn't go to get a sandwich to write a book. I went to get a sandwich and mourn my father. I got a book out of it. And then I got the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance out of it. And everything else that happened all just came. One domino, these things literally just came to me. And like you said, my timing it was when it was supposed to happen for whatever reason.
It's just it's incredible. And so many of us around the world are participating in this movement, right? And and with the last few minutes that we have left, I'd love to shift the conversation into what does it mean now for our future? What do you see? And you've talked to a lot of people, Dan. You've had the privilege of speaking to all of these people in the industry, and you know about what's happening behind the scenes. Where is this going? Is there going to be some sort of disclosure? Are the ETs just going to land from your knowledge so far? How do you think this is going to unfold now?
Okay, great question. I personally am not believing that capital D disclosure is going to happen anytime soon. No time
The
soon
government, from the government.
from President Trump or Putin or the new Pope or the King of England or Netanyahu or anyone who probably knows. I don't think that is going to happen. I disagree with Steve Bassett's like my best friend. He thinks it's going to happen tonight at midnight. I don't see that happening. I don't see, Isha, what gain do they have? What if President Trump says, yeah, there's aliens we've known for 100 years, we've kept, what gain? There's no gain. There's going to be lawsuits and hearings and outrage and articles so capital D for me personally, I don't see that happening. I've heard several people recently say that the ETs, the NHIs, they themselves are in charge of disclosure.
Yeah.
Chaim Heshed has said this. Avi Loeb has said this. Richard Dolan said this at Contact in the Desert. Well, that's brilliant, right? Because they, like in my book, if they wanted to land tomorrow at Dodger Stadium, like my book, they could. And we'd all know. In fact, Isha, you know what? I'm getting the chills. I just remembered, I swear, I just remembered a dream that I had last night. Last night. I was outside looking up, and there were hundreds of white flying saucers in the sky. Hundreds. Hundreds. They were in a V shape, but there were hundreds of white classic saucers in a blue sky. And I said to whoever was to my left, I said, well, today's the day of disclosure. It's arrived. That was a dream I had last night. Pretty cool, right? I just remember
I fully get it. I've had so many contact dreams like that myself as well,
that
where
was a good one. I don't usually dream about
yeah.
aliens or UFO, but
You
that one
don't?
messed
Oh
it.
God. I have them all the time. Like that dream, I've had very similar ones like that where I see Star Family coming in, and one of my favorites is actually watching the ship land on the ground, and I'm there and I walk over and like Ashtar steps out with his whole like fleet, and it's just like oh just the vibration, and it's incredible.
What a wonderful experience that would be. To answer your question, I'm doing two things that my new mandate is we are disclosure. We are
Yeah.
disclosure. People like you and all the podcasters and Ross Coulthard and all our friends, Bassett and Pope and Hynek and Dolan and Chris Bledsoe, all collectively. There are so many people that are putting out interesting stories to the world. I created, where is it? I always do this wrong. I created Hollywood Disclosure Alliance 2 years ago with Steve Bassett. Half our members, as you know, are experiencers and researchers, and the other half are Hollywood, and it just means entertainment industry, writers, producers, directors. And it's a networking group by which my goal for it is to nurture the next era of feature films, TV shows, and documentaries based on real life experiences of real life people like you and me. For every Travis Walton, I just came up with this recently. We all know Travis Walton, right? We all know Betty and Barney Hill. Less people know about the guys from Pascagoula, which is also an incredible story. There are probably 100,000, Isha, hundreds of thousands of incredible stories that we have never heard about.
Mm.
They're from all over the world. There are people are afraid to come forward. They think they'll be ridiculed. They'll be thrown in the nut house. They'll lose their jobs. They'll lose their spouse. I've met just in the last 2 years, hundreds of people that have told me incredible stories. And I just shake my head. I go, why is your story not on the front page of the New York Times? So that's what this group is trying to nurture media. My other venture, which you know about, is called the Wow Signal News. Please have your people check it out. The Wow Signal News. It's a news resource for global ufologists. I launched it just a few months ago. I get news from all over the world, from wonderful people, including you, and I post press releases, articles, photos, videos, guest opinion columns. Book. We're going to do book reviews starting next week. And it's been a wonderful forum. And the reason I did that is so that anyone in the world can send me their news and I can post it, and 1 million people around the world will read their story. So they're complementary. HDA and the Wow Signal, they're cousins. My daughter and I own both things. They're cousin companies. But I am dedicated to giving my late father a voice in disclosure. And because I've been a Hollywood publicist for 42 years, this is my way of doing it is through the media. That's why I was chosen, I guess. You tell me, I don't know.
That's fantastic, Dan. And I love the work that you're doing. And we will put those links in the comments. So anyone who wants to check out the HDA, you can become a member. You guys have some regular events and stuff as well, which I would love
Yes.
to get along to at some point. But for the meantime, I like enjoying being inside the Slack channel, making amazing contacts. It's a fantastic group you've got going on there.
Thank you very much. Also put in danharariauthor.com. I need to sell books. So this just came out the other day on audiobook. So out there, help a struggling publicist pay his bills. After they came, the audiobook, it's on Amazon. So my mother goes, you don't promote your books enough. So, Mom, I'm promoting my book.
Well, people should definitely check out your book after they came. We'll put all of
Thank
those
you.
links in the show notes. And
Very
I
sweet.
just want
Thank you
to
very much.
say,
Thank you. Super fun, man. When you're in LA, sometime you'll be in LA. We'll hang out,
I will be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was meant to get across there later this year. We'll see how that pans out. But
You
yeah, I
could you
do
could
get
leave your husband at home. It's okay.
I
No, I'm
probably
only
would if
kidding.
I came to LA. But
There you
yeah,
go.
it's been wonderful, Dan. Thank you so much for jumping on First Contact and
Thank
sharing
you.
the story. And one thing I like to finish up with is, we here at First Contact, as you said, we're really big believers in the idea that we are the disclosure. And what final message do you have for all the seekers out there, the people who want to be involved in the movement? What encouragement can you give them today to make this their mission too?
Well, part of We Are Disclosure for me personally is tell your stories.
Mm-hmm.
Share your stories. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones. Don't be afraid of ridicule. The more data and content that gets out in the world, at some point the scales are going to tip. There's going to be so many millions of us experiencers, millions of us that have had remarkable stories. And again, through join my group, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, send news about your experiences to the wowsignal.news. Share that would be it. For us to be We Are Disclosure, Eesha, to me means share your stories and experiences. Let's take the stigma away. Don't be afraid. You know, it's like years ago if you were a drug addict or a heroin addict and you needed help and you would never tell anyone. I'm not equating it to that, but there's still stigmas against people like us who experiencers, you know. My best friends think I'm bad as I don't know if I could say the word bad ass crazy. They love me. Everyone loves me. But my closest friends, my non-UFO friends, Isha, they think I'm crazy. Danny, it's with the aliens. But because why? I've been studying this for 20 years. You've been studying this probably 30 years. When you study this in its entirety and you meet hundreds of people who've had incredible experiences and you go to Contact in the Desert and you watch documentaries and you read every book, you realize, oh my God, this is huge. There's so much here. Share your experiences, share your knowledge with others. And I'm trying, let's have the stigma go away. P.S. Next year, Steven Spielberg's next movie comes out next year. It's called Disclosure next summer.
Fantastic, Dan. That's an amazing parting message for everyone. And we just thank you so much for being on the show. It's been amazing. Thank you for sharing your story.
That
Thank you for your amazing work that you do. I'm so grateful that we
very
connected
sweet.
last year.
Thank you for having me on, and we'll talk soon.
Well, thank you. And to
Okay.
all of our listeners and viewers, we always appreciate you jumping on here. Please give us a like, share, comment, share this episode with your friends. As Dan said, we are the disclosure. We are here to make a difference. And every story that you share, every link that you tell a friend about, it's going to help us get the word out, get us closer to that vision and mission of peaceful open contact by 2027. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode of First Contact.